Formula Access, welcome. We got a very special show for you guys today. I told you I'd be bringing the people of motorsports to your doorstep, and today we have a very, very special guest, Tatiana Calderon. She is a racer in her own right. Every opinion that I've ever had of her changed immediately upon this time that I got to spend with her. She's driven Formula E, Formula One, Formula Two, World Endurance, IndyCar. She started at karting. She began winning. We talk about all of this in this episode today. Guys, be patient. Listen to an unbelievable story of an unbelievable human that is taking the world of motorsports by storm. Guys, thank you. Looking forward to it. Appreciate it. Enjoy. Welcome, Ryan Hunt here, Formula Access. I told you guys I would be bringing the people of motorsports once again. We've got a very, very special guest, somebody that I've been trying to get on the show for a little while. And we finally connected schedules in her busy race schedule. Today we have Tatiana Calderon, a star in her own right. Formula One, Formula Two, Formula Three, Formula E, IndyCar. I mean, you name it, she's raced it. I am so excited to get into this story. Tatiana, thank you so much for being here.
Hey, Ryan, thanks so much for the invitation, for sharing a little bit of my story today, and I'm super happy to be chatting to you today.
I am excited. The pleasure is mine. So my audience started out in America, and it is like 30% of my audience now. So I used to tell people, hey, we're all from the US and motorsports is really new to us. So what, who are you? And now it's really opened up. Again, it's only like 3 weeks old. So we've got guests from all over the paddock. And I think that is really expanding our audience outside of where it began. So just to get started, tell everybody who you are and where you are today in your journey.
Okay, so I'm Tatiana Calderon. I'm 29 years old. I'm originally from Colombia, but like you were mentioning, I've been racing all around the world since I was 9 years old. A privilege, really, to be in that position, to discover my passion so early. I'm currently, or I've been living in Spain for the last 10 years, although I moved for like 6 months this year to the US, to Miami, because I was racing in IndyCar. But life is unpredictable and full of surprises, so I end up coming back to Formula 2 this year. I still have a race to go in Abu Dhabi end of November, and I'm just here recovering and pushing for the end of the season.
You recently had an injury, right? Yeah. Okay. What?
Yeah, sadly.
What happened to those who aren't paying attention?
Yeah, so we had 3 races in a row. Thankfully, it happened on the last one before the 2-month break. So I was in Monza, and I crashed with another driver. In my view, he crashed into me, and I wasn't really expecting it, and the steering wheel just. I think I don't know what I did or what I didn't do. I didn't took the hands away from the steering, and it broke one of my bones on my fingers. So I have a 4-week recovery to start rehab, but at least it was a 2-month break before the next race. So I have time to get back into shape and to recover fully.
For those of you that don't know or are new to motorsports, if you ever watch an accident or a car go off, you immediately see the driver pull their hands away and the steering wheel goes nuts. So that's what happened?
Yeah, technically, like, I was not gonna let the wheel go because we were fighting like wheel to wheel. So I was not really expecting. He just opened the corner more than than he should. Didn't give me space, so all of a sudden, suspension broke, but the steering wheel just snapped on me, and that was like on a Saturday, and I thought it was not broken, so I went to sleep. I didn't tell anybody. I was like putting ice because I wanted to race the next day, and I woke up and it was very, like really big. And my engineer came to see it, and he was like, "Think it's broken? You're crazy if you want to drive." So I had to go to the medical center and couldn't really make the Sunday race. So that's
You
life
can't fake your
sometimes.
way through that.
I tried putting my glove on, but it wouldn't fit.
Oh,
So I tried like 2 sizes bigger, and still it was not fitting in.
oh.
I still wanted to try, but the team, they were like, "Look, if it's not broken, then for sure you can try. But if it's broken, we'd rather you not do anything crazy to just be competing. So I thought it was not broken. I went for a scan, but it was. So that was the end of my race.
I love the warrior in people that are willing to, I don't know, football players that play with broken bones, and race car drivers that race with broken bones. I think Daniel Ricciardo had a story where he, during preseason testing, he broke his arm or something dirt biking, and helmet drilled into him, and it was an uncomfortable conversation. So I applaud people that try to battle through that and let the team tell them not to race and not step aside. So we go way back. You don't, well, not way back, but you don't remember. But so as I first started really kind of digging into this podcast and kind of deciding that I wanted to spend a lot more time in motorsports, I started making connections and contacts on social media and whatnot. And a friend of mine is a sponsor for Andretti Motorsports. So I went to St. Pete, and I was like, "Oh, I'm going to St. Pete. I wonder if I can connect with anybody there." So I start sending messages to like the drivers and anybody that I could get in touch with. And you actually were the only person that responded. I think it was like a good luck, go get them kind of message on there, but you were actually the only person that responded to that. And in that race, I was on the grid with Mario while he was getting ready to take the 2-seater around for one of the Olympians, and just said hi. I don't imagine that you would remember the conversation, nor do I expect that, but just that was my run-in with Tatiana in the past, and what was that, 6 or 8 months ago? But but I appreciated that as a fan. I appreciated that. So thanks for doing that. So going back,
I'm glad I did it.
you don't remember, it's okay, don't be embarrassed.
It's just that was my first weekend in IndyCar, so I guess like, yeah, you're like overwhelmed with the fans in America are incredible. Like, I loved my time there, and I met so many great people. So I'm sure you may. I'm happy we reconnect.
Me too. So okay, so all that to be said, how did you get here? Like, what's your origin story? Like, how did you get into motorsports? Because you're from Colombia, correct?
That's right. I think my sister is responsible for that. Although, like, in my family, nobody has ever raced, but my dad was super fan of like cars and bikes and anything that had an engine and fuel. So I think I grew up like him wanting us to do different kind of sports as well. And it really was when I was 9 years old, where my sister took me to a rental go-kart track near our house in Bogota, in Colombia, and we bought a 5-minute ticket, and we fell in love with speed, with adrenaline. So we were going there every day after school, and they made these night championships, and we started winning that. And it was by the time Juan Pablo Montoya was like reaching Formula One. He had already competed in IndyCar or Champ Car, how it was called back then. And it was like a big boom of racing in Colombia. And I think I come from that boom, but naturally, like we just fall in love with it.
I miss him on the track. I gotta say, I've never felt such disappointment in Formula One as when he left. I like a warrior. Maybe it's the entrepreneur in me. Maybe it's, I don't know. Somebody that goes out there and is just a lone wolf warrior. I love that. So I'm glad to hear it. You're not the only story that I've come across where he's kind of your hero, your kind of quasi mentor. Do you spend any time with him?
um it was part of this year. It felt so surreal because I raced him in Indianapolis. I battled with him. At some point I overtook him. He then overtook me after. But it was like, you're racing your hero. And honestly, he's always been super open, giving me advice, tips, particularly, like, we raced in the 24 hours of Le Mans together and the WEC championship a couple of years back.
Uh-huh.
And it's really nice when you are driving, maybe not the same team. I hope that one day we can share the same car, but a similar kind of car. And then, you can really talk about the details and the feelings, and how much his experience honestly helped me with just little tips here and there. So yeah, it's been an enjoyable journey in that sense, and he's always been super nice to me.
It's a conversation I actually have with a lot of young drivers. So I have a 15-year-old son that races go-karts as well. Not to be in your shoes one day, but to be kind of trackside as an engineer. And when somebody gives him a tip that gets him through a corner faster, can carry more momentum through it, he lights up. It's like he becomes a different person, and it fires him up. Just I'm watching you explain that, and I see that same kind of light upness. So I'm glad to see that even the guys that have made it are still doing that today with drivers.
He's one of the good ones.
So going back to 9 years old, winning championships in karting, how did you go from a rental series to getting your own car? Like, what was that journey like?
So there was a lot of convincing, a lot of begging, a lot of pressure, to convince my parents to buy us the first go-kart. So I remember, since 7 a.m. in the morning, I was like, Dad, I want a go-kart. I want a go-kart. Please, I'll do whatever it takes. And to my mom. And finally, we convinced them. And yeah, I remember, like, if it was yesterday, to when we went to pick it up. And we brought it back home, and we just, build it all apart, build it back together, maybe the wrong way. And that's how our real journey started. But it took a couple of weeks for them to, like, when you have nobody that has ever raced, it was like learning from zero. So just to find out who we can talk to buy the go-kart and the competitions, and that's how we sort of started. Then we took, like, to get the license, a course, and then you connect with people that actually know a little bit more, and then they can coach you in a way. And that's how we really started. But at the beginning, like everybody, your dad starts to be your mechanic, and you bond, sort of start to understand how things work in the business. And that's how we really started, going in the easy kart. Was the championship I started racing first.
How long did it take you to grasp setup on a go-kart. I mean, when your dad's the engineer, I can attest to this because I am trackside for hours just getting ready for the first practice. And then when you can't find the time, you spend more hours trying to find it. And I'm not a mechanic, so I'm kind of just Googling it and asking for help. And people are willing to help you until a point. So if you're already challenging the other people out there, like how hard was it to get help?
Absolutely. Being the only two girls that were racing. So, first day, everybody smile at you. Oh, it's great to have girls here, blah, blah, blah. They're all super helpful. But the minute you start to be competitive, you can see the changes on their faces, and the friendly advice is not there anymore. It They become frightened by you, and that's how, thankfully, it came a little bit later. But it's yeah, I wouldn't say it's like an ugly feeling, but a good feeling at the same time, because you know that you're being taken seriously. Yet in karting, I felt like those first years were like, you doubt a little bit of what you're doing, because people were saying that we were cheating, that I had a better go-kart, that they always try to blame something else for my performance. It could not be that I was training and that I was getting better and being better than the guys in the track. It was always about finding an excuse. So it was hard for me um, growing up, but I love the challenge. I love seeing the sad faces at the end of the weekend when you're winning in the podium and they're all looking at you like, what the hell is this girl doing there? So it soon became, I've always been very competitive, but the environment started to change once we started to be competitive.
That's that's such an it's like that everywhere. It's always the go-kart, when it's never the driver. When my son is slow, it's always like, dad, can we get a new set of tires? Maybe it's the tires, or can we get a different gear ratio because it's the gears. I'm like, nope, nope, nope. You need more track time. That's what it is. So I find it funny that it's, if somebody can go out there and win, it's never talent. It's, you're doing something to the engine you're not supposed to, or you're doing stuff to the tires to make them stickier. So plus you guys at this point, I imagine, have no idea what you're doing. So like the thought of being able to bend the rules like that is it's also laughable. So
Yeah, no, I remember, leading my first race, and then the guy who was behind me just threw me out of the track, so I didn't finish. I was so pissed, and my dad was like, "Don't worry, there'll be more times." And then second time happened the same, and I'm like, "Okay, I gotta do something different." So I just went out and I took everyone out. I didn't overtook anybody, and since then I was like, okay, everybody's respect me a little bit better, and it was a lot of fun. So I think you have to find your own way of how things need to work out.
how long was he your mechanic before you brought a professional in or actually had a team behind you?
I think the first couple of months, until, like, you get to a point where you need to start to make the right changes to the go-kart to be really quick. So we took somebody to advise us on what to do, like with the carburetor and with the tire pressures and stuff like that. So, but it was always, we wanted to sort of always had an input. So I love the technical side of the sport, and I think it's because of those early years that we were doing it on our own, our supervising what other were our mechanics or advisors were saying, and like you said, just googling it and asking, and how does this work and why. and then you understand that you rather have everything under your control, right? Like, because in racing you have so many things that you cannot control, but what you can control, it better be right. And we understood that very early.
Now, how long did you kart before you went into more of a open wheel proper series?
I think like 12 years of karting, probably.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a long career. I competed in 4 like Rotax World Championships, and I did a lot of karting in America, in Stars of Karting, when it was called that way, a couple of years back, like 10, 12 years ago. But yeah, I did a lot of karting, but particularly in the US.
Were you all in? I mean, when you got your actual go-kart, was this passion and determination to be, did you want to be a Formula One driver at that point? Or was this just connecting with your dad and having fun and doing something you enjoyed?
I was always super serious about it because I knew, like, I had done like soccer, golf, tennis, horse riding. Like, I could not stop. Like, I was sports. I'm still a sports lover. But when I tried karting, I was like, oh my God, this is what I want to do. And I knew straight away. It was just a matter of convincing my parents that I wanted to be a Formula One driver in the future. And obviously, like, this girl, okay, well, it will take a couple of months until she decides maybe she wants something else. But I was like super consistent, and they could see that passion, that desire to go every weekend, every day after school, to go training. And I've always been super determined and super, like, I want to train everything. I want to be better every day. So they could see that drive in me, and I'm really glad they gave me the chance to pursue that dream. But of course, it took a couple of, I think, until I won the first championship in the United States. That's when they thought, like, oh my God, this is getting serious. She won't be going to university. So I had my chance.
Every parent thinks like that. I know I do. As you know, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm not a school system person. So, if my son or daughter wanted to be a race car driver and they said, I'm not going to college, I'd be like, okay, if you got talent, go for it. So
that's a great attitude to have. That's the same as my parents. Whatever you do want to do, and you want to do it properly, we will support you. And that's the right attitude. And I think that's what we need more. So happy to hear that you support them, whatever they decide to do.
well, I'm still surprised that it took more than one question to your dad to get a go-kart, because I can't turn my daughter down for anything at all. If she asked for a go-kart, she'd have one by the end of the day.
Things have changed a little.
Just a little. So, okay, so you've got karting. Now you make the jump to open wheel. And you had spent some time in Radical and Miata series as well. But and I think the biggest jump, to me at least, is always going to, more of a junior Formula series, or the road to Indy. I think that's a big jump. What was that like for you, and even your family too? Like, you're traveling the world at this point to pursue your dream. What does the family dynamic look like? What is that transition like for you?
It was huge transition, also because I went from karting to having like 2 test days to Star Mazda in single seaters. And I was still like finishing school, so just traveling back and forth with, sometimes it was my dad, sometimes my mom, because they still had to work full time. So it was really tough to combine both. Once I graduated and I was given the opportunity to pursue this as a career, it was a little bit better. But again, you have you start to get all this responsibility. I had to move away from home, not knowing anybody. You're under 21 and you cannot rent a car anywhere, or back then you couldn't. And it's the logistics side of things. It gets complicated, as well as the level in the US, in Europe is extremely high, and compared to like our countries where motorsports is not so well known. But that first jump was really high, like from karting to Star Mazda, without having that much test days. I think I thought it was going to be a little bit easier. The physicality of things, the way you sit in the car, the gears, the preparation, it's very, very different than karting. You go maybe to train in the same track that you're going to race at in karting, like the weekend before, or even a couple of days before the race, and that's allowed, and it's all good. And all of a sudden you just go there and you have like 2 sessions and qualifying, and that's the race, and it's a big jump to make. So it was tough at the beginning, but I think that makes you a better driver. You dig deeper, and you try and fix all the things that you need for the next race. And I think that's has kind of been my approach. Like I love challenges, and I'm glad that I have moved through different countries and ways of people, like the way they treat you in Europe, in US, in Japan, in Asia. It's very different, and you have to get to work your mind around it. And I think I'm a better person and driver because of that.
I mean, it's hard for an adult to travel to another country like that, or to a different culture, and even spend a week on vacation. I mean, you're 21 years old, traveling the world, living in another country and another culture. Like, how did you adapt to that in such a lone wolf environment? I mean, you're a driver's on their own. I mean, you've got your team, but you know, I don't think the
Mm.
other 19 drivers are out trying to help you connect with the community and whatnot. So
Yeah, and even inside your team, you still have to fight for what you want. It's a tough world. But I guess once you want something so badly, of course, it was very challenging. Just the cultural change, just not having your parents cook for you and do all the things that they do for you, and on top of that, to adapt to all the changes in the racing was really tough, like particularly the first couple of years, to understand the different culture and get to know all the new tracks. And the winter here in Europe was tough, so you start to the physical side as well. And you don't know anybody, time changes, so you don't have any friends, or you can't talk to your family, they're not awake because it's all of those things are really tough. But at the end, I think it makes you better. You don't see it straight away, you see it later. But yeah, it was one of the toughest things for me, were those first years where I moved away and I was alone. Then after I got my sister living with me and being my representative and my manager. But the first few years I was on my own with my dad, only like traveling. But yeah, you have to be tough.
so Paula was traveling with you, and I going somewhere. I think that, as a young person traveling the world and motorsports, it's a really, really competitive environment. And I think, even professionally, having people that are around you that you trust and almost that you can unload to and vent on is important. I mean, how important has her involvement been, and you kind of acclimating and just coping?
I wouldn't be here without their support. Like you said, my sister has been fundamental, because I know she has my best interest at heart. And this is it can be a very lonely world, full of sharks, because there are a lot of interest, a lot of money in this business. Politics, are tough in the sport, more than in others, I would say.
Agree.
So it can be very, very difficult, but I'm so happy that I have somebody that trusts me, that knows what I'm capable of, that always wants the best for me, looks out for me. I know that with a look, she knows if I'm good, if I'm bad, what I need. Like, we communicate in the. I think I ask her more questions than my engineer, because sometimes you just want to know what is missing, and she gives me a couple of signs that we already had spoken before, just to see how things are. And it's great to have your best friend as well, and another woman in motorsport, traveling everywhere around with you and living the dream. It's crazy that I've been in so many places, and it's always thanks to my family down at the end. We take the decisions together. That's my management team. and and I'm very proud to have done what we have done, as a family.
I mean, at your level, is Paula the manager, the coach, the friend? I mean, is she everything, or your parents involved in it as well?
Yeah, my sister, she's in everything. Obviously, my parents are very involved as well, and it doesn't mean that I haven't had advice from the outside. So I'm part of Escuderia Telmex. They represent Sergio Perez and a lot of Latin American talent, and they have people looking out for you and giving you great advice as well on what to do, where to go, talk to these teams or that. And of course, we have advice from them, but essentially, it's always been down to us, the final decision, and it's nice that we haven't had to go somewhere else for to achieve our dreams and our goals. So that makes it more special.
So you've had the experience of racing and the top of almost every food chain in motorsports. I mean, what Formula 3, the GP series, F2, F1, Formula E, IndyCar. I mean, how different is the drivability of each of these cars?
Oh, it is so different. So honestly, sometimes I wish like I had a little bit more continuity in my career. I jumped from IndyCar to, which you use Firestone tires, very like a heavy car, but it has a lot of mechanical grip. And then you go to Formula 2, it has Pirelli tires, and is a very different style to drive. The same like when you go to Formula E, to any car, any series, really, it's very specific. But I'm really happy to have had done so many and to have that experience. I was in SuperFormula, I for 2 years, another amazing car and championship that not many people know about, but it's, I think, the closest car to Formula One these days, with the amount of downforce they have. And to work with Japanese people that speak very little English, that was very challenging as well. But yeah, I think um, that has made me a really complete driver, because I have had to adapt to know different circuits, different types of communication with everybody in around the world. So I think I handle pressure much better now, thanks to that, and I can adapt quicker to certain situations thanks to that. And the World Endurance Championship I did as well, the 24 Hours of Le Mans, one of the most amazing races that if you ever have a chance to go, it's incredible. So yeah, I think that has made me it's a privilege to have driven so many series and in so many countries.
what series aside, team aside, people aside, what's been your favorite car to drive?
I mean, nothing compares to a Formula One car, obviously. That thing is just, it took me like 3 years to not chase the same. I like nothing, everything felt bad after that. It's hard to explain. It's like, okay, but this has no grip. And everyone's like, wait, this car has amazing grip. I'm like, it has nothing compared to a Formula One car. It's insane. The speeds, the G forces that go through your body, the amount of grip, the braking is just unbelievable. I think that and SuperFormula are the most incredible cars to drive in my opinion.
What's been the hardest car to drive? Or
I
the
would
hardest to kind
say
of get your head around the
IndyCar, it's very tough. Like the level, the tracks, I think Detroit you barely see because it's so bumpy. And to have confidence with that car to throw it through the walls and push the car so much during 2.5 hours sometimes, I think is the toughest thing I've done. That's IndyCar.
So okay, so you've done actual multiple series in a season. How hard is it to transition from say IndyCar to Formula 2? Like how difficult is it to change your brain and how the car behaves through corners and straights and bumpiness?
Well, it's it was a huge change and a huge challenge, and I think thanks to all that I have, what I have done before, it prepared me better. But of course, when you want to be on top, you gotta be there since the beginning because you have very little practice time in Formula 2 or in any other series to really, compare to today, like to people that have been there for many years or for the whole season, to shorten the gap. It's very difficult, but there are certain specific things that you have to start to maybe work in the simulator so that they become more natural, because when you think, you go slower. And certain tires, they like certain style of driving, and you need to sort of try and fit that style, and this takes time. So it's been really really difficult to go back to for example, in with the Pirelli tires, you do a warm-up lap, then you push, you have to cool down, you push again, so you're not really in a rhythm. Like in IndyCar, you just have to push like crazy to get the tires in. It's a very different procedure, so just to get your head around it, it's tough in a very very small window of time. But I think I'm pleased with what I've shown and with my progress. And hopefully there is more to come in the last race, that now that I have time to, evaluate and reflect on what I need to change to be more competitive.
You've been a test or development driver as well. Like, I think for the audience and for fans, like, what is that role actually?
Yeah, I think I'm super grateful because, as a driver, you always dream to be part of a Formula One team, and I was there for 4 years. They were like my family. I got along so well with all the engineers at Sauber, and I did a lot of simulator work with them. So they test a lot of things to put into the real car. I was doing that for them, the sim work. I went to a lot of races to listen to what the drivers say in the debrief, because you have like 30 engineers working in Formula One for more, for one car, for two cars. So all of a sudden you're expect to give feedback from so many different things in Formula One. So just to have a view of what is available in terms of sensors, of things that can bring performance that maybe you don't have access to in other series, because the technology in Formula One is incredible. So I was going there, listening to what they had to say, and then I tested. Uh, so for the first time to compare it with the virtual world was also quite cool. So that was basically a bit the job, just the simulator, going to the races with the team and testing the car.
So the driver will identify some sort of behavior in the car that they don't like or that they need fixed, and then you work with the engineers to help solve that as a scalable solution too.
Exactly, because these days testing in the actual track is so limited in Formula One that the simulator work it's extremely important, just to know, okay, we if this happens, we have a backup plan, and we have tested like you do more than 200 laps sometimes in the simulator, and they just measure everything, ask for your feedback, and they have a better idea of how to fix certain issues when they go on track, and when they have that 1.5 hours only of track time.
How close is that simulator to the actual car?
um there's nothing like reality, but they're getting quite good, like the changes that you make in the simulator, you can feel, and they can actually like translate depending on conditions to the real track. But I'm maybe from a different generation. For me, it's still a bit far, to say that you're driving a Formula One car, and that feeling of, through your, like, the G forces that go through your body, and to feel it uh, on your, on everything, with your hands, with everything. It's only reality.
Do you, I mean, so theoretically, if you do 200 laps in a sim on a track you've never been on, can you jump in the car and know where the grip is and where the racing lines are? And I mean, does it help that much?
It does help a lot to, just to really know, where you're going, have a bit of a reference. You cannot fully trust all the time the simulator and like conditions. They, like, you go to a track one day at 1 hour, at 1 p.m., and the next day at 1 p.m. the same car doesn't work. So you have to be, and your braking points are not the same, but it really does help to get you up to speed quicker, like to shorten the time that you need to discover the track. The simulator can really help that. And particularly, I think also that the engineer can see you drive, see a little bit your style, and the communication with them. That's what I think is most important in the simulator, to build that relationship with your engineer, because you don't have that much time in the track or at the racetrack to build on that.
What, so what's something that nobody fan wise would know about you? Like what's one of those obscure things about you that fans would want to know that they don't know today?
I'm very shy, but no, they I think they already know that. I sing. Uh, I like singing,
Okay.
but no, like, I don't know. I'm pretty open on what I think and how I feel, but um, yeah, I don't know.
I
I
mean,
wouldn't be able to.
is that how you connected to your engineers in Japan? Did you go do
Karaoke.
karaoke with them?
They were closed because it was COVID, but I think yeah, sadly, my Japanese is very limited, and their English was very limited. But no, yeah, we had a great time in Japan. But I still have to go back to try the karaoke because we didn't really with COVID we were not allowed in.
I just don't connect a shy person and a singer at all. Because
No, but I'm only singing when I'm alone at home.
okay.
That's the thing. I cannot sing in public, and I don't want it to rain where you are. So, and I don't want it to rain here either. But yeah, since I got a new sponsor, which is her name is Carol G.
Okay.
She's a Colombian artist, and I love her songs. And since then, I try to sing a little bit more.
Does she help you?
She's incredible. Like I lost my sponsor or my drive in IndyCar, and thanks to her and a couple of other companies that decided to support me, to not be at home sitting for 6 months. That's thanks to her that I'm racing back in Formula 2, and she wanted to send this message, of women empowerment. So I'm really grateful for she believing in me and giving me this chance.
So okay, so that's an area that okay, so if you heard my podcast with Tatiana, like I think just the sheer amount of financial obligations that a driver has until you don't get paid till you hit the top, and so you have to have sponsors, investors, family money, whatever that is, to get to that point. And you see so much talent not actually be able to make it because of lack of funds. You saw it in USF 2000 this year too, with Miles. He was leading the championship and ran out of money, and at the last second, AJ Foyt came in. I think that's who it was. Came in and kind of helped support him to finish the year out. How does that impact you as a driver? I mean, you're at the top, and I mean, do you see this coming? And is Paula out, kind of shaking bushes for sponsors while it's happening, or?
All the time, like she's always looking for partners because that's the name of the game, unfortunately. Like, the more sponsors you get, the more track time, the better possibilities to go to good team. The more you can prepare your season, the more simulator you can do. Like, it just is sadly mostly about how much sponsorship you can raise to continue racing. So that's something that we have learned along the way, and I think I also learned to not get frustrated, because sometimes you want the best result, you want to win, but sometimes you don't have the means to go win. But you have to be grateful, you have to accept what you have and make the most out of it, and focus on getting yourself better, so that when you get a great opportunity or an opportunity to show people what you can do, then you're ready. But it's in a way a very frustrating sport in that sense, because it not only depends on you, but on very different factors that you don't control, like the sponsorship side. And it's a game that never stops, and it's a big part of our job nowadays, to be a good marketing tool at the end, and to be really open to find the companies that support who you are, and that want to give you the opportunity.
Do you find that it's, I mean, you're one of like two racers that are, at that level. I mean, do you find it easier to find sponsors, or is it harder to find sponsors?
The higher you go, the more expensive things start to get, so the more difficult it becomes, actually. And we've done a bit of research, and about all the sponsorship in sport, only 1% goes to female athletes. So although you would think that you get more attention, you're the only one, we want more, obviously, but that gives more attention. But to find the sponsors has not been easy. I mean, it's a very, regardless of your gender, of course, but those numbers really are really scary. And I think that what we need to start changing, for other, like for companies to really believe in female talent as well more. I truly believe that's the way to go. And the way I got my opportunity in Formula One was because there was a female team principal that gave me that opportunity. Now, the example of Carol G, in Richard Mille team as well. It was a woman who gave us the chance to compete. And they were all super surprised of how good we could be. So it's about finding those opportunities, changing people's perceptions, and helping each other at the end. It's what will bring us to the next level. But it's a very challenging time in a way, and challenging to find all the sponsors.
I mean, how important is marketing in that process? I mean, you have a pretty robust social media. I mean, are you constantly sending messages? And
yeah, my sister helps a lot with that. But the sponsorship, I would say that before, you would I always obviously focus on my performance and training on everything. But if you don't have sponsors, you don't go racing.
yeah.
So you have to spend a lot of time creating content, and making sure that you're attractive to new partners, and actively search for them, because at the end, that's what will get you racing.
What's your ultimate goal? I mean, is it Formula One?
Yeah, I would be lying if I said no. That, of course not. But yeah, I still believe I can make it, and I can be competitive in Formula One. But at the end of the day, it's down to opportunity, and I love racing. So as long as I can be racing, I'll be super happy. But of course, my ultimate goal continues to be Formula One.
So okay, so if Susie and Toto called you and Andretti called you and said, we got a seat for you, and we're going to pay you to drive for, who'd you pick?
You mean between Formula One and IndyCar?
Yeah, at the top of the food chain.
Okay. It depends how competitive you mean a Mercedes? To drive a Mercedes?
Drive a Mercedes, drive an IndyCar,
course.
go sit next to Colton.
I would pick a Formula One, of course, just because I haven't done it.
I would pick that too. What's the hardest thing you've had to overcome in your career in motorsports?
2019 was the most difficult year of my career, because I lost my teammate in a terrible accident in Spa. And it made me question a lot of things, and I wasn't getting the results I wanted, or I thought I deserved. And I think I was not enjoying racing as much because of that pressure. So it was good in a way, because I realized that, we never know when our last day is going to be, and you better enjoy what you're doing. So I think my approach to racing changed a lot on that year, and that has been like the most difficult time of my career and my personal life. So I'm a better person and a better driver because of that. But it was very, very difficult, because you never expect that to happen so close to you, to somebody that you care about so much. So that was a very difficult time in my life.
How did you overcome that? Like, how did you get to a point where it's like, yeah, I'm still going to push this thing to the limits of its capabilities and not be not live in fear?
Yeah, I think I never really had fear. I had more respect for what I do and with my competitors. Um, I think fear, obviously, to not perform was what was stopping me, which it shouldn't be there. And at the end of the day, that's when I started to change my approach. And I said, like, regardless to where I get to, I want to enjoy every time I'm on track. And the only way to succeed, to be good, uh, to get a good result is when you focus on yourself, on enjoying. That's when you shine the most. So um, of course it took, I think it was great that we had the pandemic, because I had time to reflect, to get it out of my chest, to disconnect for a little while of from racing,
Uh-huh.
to miss racing. And I think that really helped me understand what I was going through.
I think that's such great hope that you provide in that. I mean, I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks ago I was watching the Chase the Dream, and that particular episode when that occurred, and they were interviewing you, and you were obviously emotional. And my daughter is not a race car driver. She's more of an artist, and but she loves racing because I love racing, and she sits with me through all these racing shows that I watch. But that episode, she had a lot of questions to ask, and obviously I want to have her listen to this, but I think it's a level of hope that you can provide people, because I think it's a trait that our generation has lost, is like, life is tough, man. It's hard, and you have to remain focused, and you gotta get back up when you get knocked over. And it was just a really powerful episode.
I
I'm
think I
glad.
haven't been able to watch it just because I get emotional every time. But it's so true, it's, we never know when things can go wrong, or if we are gonna be here tomorrow. So we spend too much time worrying about what people think, or what we will do tomorrow, that we forget we have here, and we have today and right now. And I try, even it happens to me sometimes, but you have to enjoy the moment and enjoy what you're doing in your daily life, because that's the only way you can get better, and you can enjoy the present.
Well, I just personally, I thank you for being authentic. I know it's hard to do that. So, for whatever that's worth, keep up the authenticity in that. So switching gears too, I don't want to take a lot of time on this. I don't want this to like always be the defining factor of your conversation, but women in motorsports, you've mentioned this a couple of times as we've been talking, of just the challenge it is. And I think everyone sees it, and to me, I think nobody knows what to do with it. And so I think, for me, the entrepreneur in me is always find solutions, kind of fix problems rather than band-aid them, or fix symptoms versus the actual problem. And so, I've kind of written pretty extensively about just the mechanics of this, and, keeping it as a meritocracy and whatnot. But, what do you think the solution to this is ultimately at the end of the day?
There is no one answer. Like, I wish I had the answer, right?
Yeah.
I think it's great that we are talking about it, because at the beginning I was like, okay, I don't want to talk about it because I want to be treated equally, and I don't want to show any like weakness, or like that I care or not. But I think that was wrong. At the end of the day, there is an issue, because we wouldn't be talking about it if it wasn't. So you gotta talk about the issues for people to understand what's going wrong. And I think, Obviously, it starts from karting, from education, from giving the same opportunity for a girl to discover karting than they give a boy. That's the first thing. But then, there are a lot of things in the sport that still need to change, like in the design of the cars with our measurements, the way we think, we act, we feel. Our bodies are different with how we gain muscle. There are a lot of the way we think and we approach racing or qualifying sessions. So I think there's a lot of education that still needs to be addressed for us to have the same chances as the guys. And of course, opportunities, because for some reason there's still there's a lot that have been, everybody talks about inclusion and equality and equity with boards, but I don't feel like a lot has been really done. So to have good opportunities to show our talent is still missing.
So I'm going to tread lightly here. So I've worked for entrepreneurs for most of my career. So I've worked with I've worked with people that want results and actions, and they don't care what you have to say. And so, if I'm hearing you right, I'm hearing talk is one thing, action is another thing. Like, do you feel like there's a ton of talk happening? Do you feel like there's action happening from that talk, or is the talk just to kind of simmer everybody down that we're trying here?
Yeah, I think there's not enough being done. That's my feeling from the inside, really.
So motorsports is a business, and it's my day job is I run a tech company, and everything is a business model. If it's not a business model that's viable on paper, it won't be viable in the real world. And I think when starting a new idea or a new business, you have to arrive at a profitable business model before you can create a product, put it to market or whatnot. I think that the conversation is really important to have, so the powers that be have that aha moment when it clicks of like, here's the actual problem and here's the solution, so that the field gets equalized, and I think equalizing it on a meritocracy is really important for what they're doing, because while I appreciate the W series, and what it is, I feel like the separation from F2 and and F3 creates a disconnected bridge between W series going to Formula One. I mean, have you ever considered W series?
Never. It's not in my DNA. I don't feel like we need a different treatment in terms of, or that we need a separate series. We just need the right opportunities and the right people with open minds to give us what we need to perform. We don't need, at the end, you need to compete against the best to be one of the best, because that's when you're under pressure and having to deliver more. That's when you give your best. And that happens when we are in a mixed scenario, and in Formula 3, in Formula 2, exposed to the highest level. Of course, giving their right equipment, because otherwise, I feel like we're always being judged, but people don't know the whole story, the testing that is behind it. So I feel like, yeah, we haven't been giving the right the right opportunities. And I wish that with all that money that was invested in something different, that we could have provided proper opportunities for other girls. I'm still grateful that, you know, there are a lot of girls that can be racing at this at the moment, but to me it seems like if the champion was not able to progress to Formula 3, there's something wrong again. Still, there's something that we are not doing right.
I had a somebody ask me the question. You know, Quora is a question answer site. You know, people ask questions. It's kind of like a really refined kind of creators Reddit. And so, you know, there were a lot of questions coming around to me about just this particular issue at hand. And, you know, and I just, to me, I think if the powers that be at W Series would have taken those resources and created an F3 and an F2 team as a platform for those drivers, that it would be more meaningful. I think, you know, if you have a team with resources on a very focused and defined mission, and they have the equipment and the resources to win races, you have your answer. You know, if Tatiana can come into Formula 2 on a W Series owned team and win the championship, well, you're worthy of that position, and you're worthy to take the next step to Formula 1 because you are competing, you know, against the best. It's such a hard topic to say, because it's like, what are you saying? W Series is bad? It's like, I don't know. I just it's great. I mean, you provide people a platform that they otherwise wouldn't have. But I agree with you. I think, you know, if you're not arriving in Formula 2, Formula 3, Formula 4, then, you know, is it a talent problem or a resource problem? And, you know, and I think that's an entirely different set of issues that everyone deals with, which obviously solves it itself. What's been your pinch me moment? I mean, you've been everywhere in motorsports. Like, at what point were you like, I can't even believe that I'm here. Like, I can't even believe I'm experiencing this. I think I know the answer already, but
yeah, Formula 1 definitely. Like, you know, it's like, am I part of a Formula 1 team, and then I'm testing a Formula 1 car, and it's a dream of 15 years of work that I hope I'm ready for. So that was like definitely one of those pinch me moments that I will never forget, and the best experience in my life by far, for sure. So yeah, never be afraid of sometimes what you dream, because it can become reality.
well, okay, so you're in there, you're testing a Formula 1 car. You're in a highly competitive environment. I mean, are you trash talking the other drivers like, hey, I'm coming for your seat. Like, I'm going to get out there and I'm going to drop a lap time faster than both of you guys. And, you know, I'm coming for you.
I've always been super, you know, I focus on my own, and I know that if I do the job, I don't need to talk or scare anybody else. I know the stopwatch and what I say with the engineers, and how that's my best weapon, I think.
I mean being playful. I don't mean like legitimately like I'm here to ruin your career.
Yeah, no, you know, you make yourself noticeable, so that it's good, because I feel like, you know, whenever I go to a series and they don't smile at you initially, it's because they fear that you may becoming you are a rival. And I love feeling like lonely in a way, because you know you're a threat to them. So whenever I don't have that, then I worry, because it means I have to prove that I'm there to take their seats. But yeah, I all my talking, in a way, I do at the track. That's how I've always tried to look at things.
I always ask every guest, because this is the number one question that I get asked on Quora, bar none. It's, I'm 4 years old, 14 years old, 40 years old, and I want to be a Formula One or IndyCar driver, can I do it? You obviously have a very unique vantage point than I would or anyone else. How would you answer that question?
I believe that you can achieve anything you put your mind into. Like when I look back, that 9-year-old girl that grew up watching Formula One in Colombia, watching Montoya on the TV, and 20 years later, I'm racing against him at the same in the same track, same time. I believe anything is possible, and it's obviously hard work. But when you know what you want, you go with everything you have and you go for it. And I believe anything is possible.
Those are amazing words. Tatiana, thank you so much for coming on here. You are not a shy person. You're a very articulate, well-spoken person. And this is such a great episode. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Ryan. It was nice to see you after St. Pete and talk to you. And I hope we can repeat another track moment. So thanks for having me. Thanks for taking the time and sharing my story.
Thank you.